How you doing, folks? Thank you for tuning in to Tony D. Hey, I want to talk about DMT. I see this online, and it kind of figures it's going to fit right in where it belongs as usual. With all the old drugs, that been around are being removed from the streets, and they're capturing all the drug dealers. They got to fill the void. It's all sort of planned. So now we have a drug, DMT, that academics support and think is so incredibly great for you. And some of the greatest, wealthiest stars on internet and TV, they're supporting that idea. Such wonderful people. And as I said before in my other programs, what's behind that face is a good question. And we're living in a time in history where everyone says, or God had said actually, that there'll be more things that happen in this time and period that's never happened before. So they're throwing everything at us, including the kitchen sink, and they definitely want to separate you from your body, your soul, and your mind. And so now the dark forces, I like to say the people who are in the business of promoting diabolical elements of evil upon humanity, sprinkle them from the sky in many ways, and in our minds and others, and in our food in other ways. And I want you to know something. These people are horrifyingly evil, folks. Horrifyingly evil. And as I said, I did drugs years ago, and I was living on the east side of Detroit, not so good area, pretty scary area, and you know, I had my time in my life. We're talking a long time ago, 40 years ago. But, you know, I remember when I had sort of a drug overdose. And those people around me, I don't want to get into the whole thing because it's kind of ugly. But, they'll dump your body, they'll get rid of you. Nobody wants to hold the responsibility, including in these modern days, the academics. If something happens to you, folks, when you're out of your mind, floating around in these existences that are unseen, the unseen realms, and you don't come back or you don't come back right, they're going to deny every single thing that happened to you. All these smiling doctors, doctrines, psychiatrists, psychologists, scientists will all turn their back on you, folks. Remember those faces. You can see by looking at them that they're definitely of the evil source of nature that's beyond our understanding. I'm basically begging you folks not to go in that direction. Do not put your soul on the line. Do not put your mind on the line. Do not let them convince you that everything is okay. I'm very incredibly sorrowful that there are people online who are well known, well expected to know the truth, or at least examine these things in such a careful way and be very on the side of protecting humans, but they're not. They're enjoying promoting the idea to send your children, your young children, your college level children into the obelisk, the mind that may never return properly. I just want to say it's a scary time. And here's another point I want to make. I grew up in the late 60s, early 70s. When I was young, the drugs weren't on the street everywhere. They weren't on the street everywhere, folks. People were, they would drink. And then pot started to come around. And then all of a sudden, overnight in the early 70s, I remember there was drugs on every street corner. How do you promote or get something that across the whole United States if those dark forces that are in our government are not participating. Folks, don't step over the line. Don't let them convince you that this is better than any other drug, because that's what they're doing. They're saying that people who are depressed or whatever need to possibly be involved with this somehow. I've heard them talk about it. Being sober is the best thing for you, and coming under the care of Christ. Well, anyways, I'm not going to say much more about it. I hope some of them creeps that promote this stuff spot me online. I want them to know I'm totally, absolutely against them in every way, shape, or form. They are nothing more than deserters of the truth of mankind's destiny. They're trying to make you lose your sight on your final outcome, and that is getting up to heaven. Thank you for listening to Tony D. Remember, Thessalonians 1:5. Are you a child of the day or are you a child of the night? Make your choice soon. God bless you. See ya. Bye.